Call of Duty Black Ops 4 is just a few months away. We personally think the game looks like it's going to be fun, and we're debating on pre-ordering it after we played some of the beta. But though if you don't want to wait that long to play some good old Call of Duty, which Call of Duty is the most active one right now on the marketplace? And is Call of Duty World War II still the most active Call of Duty, or is there maybe an older Call of Duty with a bigger and better community? Well, my name's Elijah, and today we are taking a look at the top 5 most active Call of Duty games to buy in 2018. We rank the games by a mixture of the actual numbers of players still playing the game and what we personally think of the games and how they still hold up today in 2018. Mind you, we did a whole series on this where we reviewed all the games in 2018, so we've given them all a decent amount of attention. Obviously, we didn't count in Black Ops 4 on this list because it hasn't released at the time of this video, so let's jump right into it. Number 5, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is the #1 most sold Call of Duty game of all time, selling an immense amount of almost 31 million copies. So thinking logically, that must mean there are still a lot of players, right? Well, Modern Warfare 3 is in fact the 5th most active Call of Duty, with averaging numbers of 900 to 1,000 players a day, peaking around a high of 1,900 players this year. Back in the day, Modern Warfare 3 did a pretty good job at staying true to the Modern Warfare 2 formula and multiplayer that was a huge success a few years prior. The game also balanced a few things like explosions that don't do as much damage as, Modern Warfare 2, and it also discouraged people from kind of abusing some of the explosives that were over the top. I'm looking at the noob tubes from Modern Warfare 2. Some of the guns had been toned down a little bit, and some of the new guns that were introduced mixed the style of gameplay around. The kill streak system in Modern Warfare 3 is also nerfed a little to stop some from being overpowered and avoid the general frustration that sometimes came with Modern Warfare 2. Even though there were some changes in balancing, at the same time this game feels a bit too much like Modern Warfare 2 without actually being Modern Warfare 2, and doesn't always feel like a unique experience. The game is probably the most similar to its predecessor in a Call of Duty game to date, where this game really feels more like Modern Warfare 2.5, more so than Modern Warfare 3, which is probably the reason why, even though 31 million people own the game, there's only a small percentage of those left. We recommend you picking up the game if you already own the other Call of Duty games, but since it's only $11, there's not much to lose by buying this game, but there are Call of Duties with bigger communities than this game. Number 4, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2 is often considered to have one of the last genuinely good Call of Duty multiplayers. Black Ops 2 introduced a lot of new ways to balancing the game when it came out. You had the Pick 10 Create a Class system, which was levels above the previous types of Create a Class, and it really allowed for balanced classes that players could fully customize. For the first time in Call of Duty, you were able to substitute a secondary weapon for a third attachment, or even an extra perk. Being able to level up your guns was a pretty welcome addition to the series too. The multiplayer maps are varied, there are quite a few maps, which is always a good thing, but we gotta say, some of these maps really contribute to why the multiplayer is so great, even to this day. The levels are clean and clear with perfect flanks that rarely feel unbalanced. There are hackers here and there, but surprisingly it's not too bad. It can get annoying at times, but usually you can find yourself a new lobby pretty easily. The multiplayer plays pretty solid overall in the year 2018, and it's even backwards compatible on the Xbox One, which allows for a larger player base. And for the most part, finding a game is pretty easy. Much easier than Black Ops 1, or even a newer Call of Duty game like Infinite Warfare. PS3 will still have some of the most trouble finding a game, but if you are on at a good time, Team Deathmatch shouldn't be too much of a problem. Black Ops 2 in 2018 averages about 1,000 players a day on PC, with peaks of sometimes double that amount, and we generally would recommend you buying this game since the community is active enough, and Zombies is still a fun game. Since it's priced at only $12 on websites like G2A, it's not that bad either. But overall, it's not as active as some of the Call of Duties we have right now, but it's still a great game to buy. Number 3, Call of Duty World War II. Obviously, Call of Duty World War II is the newest entry in the franchise, so by default, it has the most players, but it doesn't mean that it's worth buying. Call of Duty World War II was plagued with issues from the beginning, and never really took off as the next big Call of Duty. The lag of content, especially multiplayer maps at release, personally made it hard for me to have fun with this game for longer than 1 or 2 weeks. 9 maps is really dumb for any base game in any competitive shooter, period. I don't care what anyone says. Fight me. Don't at me on Twitter. It's just not enough at all to keep players playing without getting tired of the game too quickly. On top of that, the game also had a lot of network issues in the first month, and you had to load forever to get into lobbies or to equip weapons, and etc. Some of the maps and game modes were almost unplayable because of terrible spawns, which made the lack of content that actually was fun feel even bigger. Not even with the addition of War Mode, which had 3 exclusive maps, were able to keep players interested. And it's not fully that World War II was a bad Call of Duty. It had some steps in the right direction and even sold that way, or at least sold way better than Infinite Warfare did. Now looking at the numbers of World War II, it started out with a little more than 56,000 players in the first month, with an average of 20,000 players playing every day. Seems like decent enough numbers, right? But only after 1 month, the peak of 56,000 players went down more than 50% to around 24,000, and a maximum of only 10,000 people were left playing the game every day. And again, this happened only a month after the release. To give you a better comparison to Black Ops 3, in July 2016, which was the first July after the game release, it still averaged 6,500 players, while World War II only barely breaks around 3,000 players last month. Now to clarify, we mostly got the numbers for the PC, since we did not find a reliable source for Xbox or PS4. Nonetheless, from researching on Reddit and other forums, we got the impression that the drop in players occurred around the same time across the board. Yes, on paper, this game does have the most players online right now, but does that mean we would recommend buying Call of Duty World War II in 2018? No. Not at all. The reason for that being the player base just keeps dropping, and by the time that Black Ops 4 comes out, most of the players will be gone, or they might switch to newer installments since it already has more maps and more balanced game modes from the get-go. The cheapest we could find the game was for around $30, which definitely isn't worth it at all, considering single player and zombies doesn't give you that much more, especially the single player, because it feels like the campaign is missing a third act that was supposed to be in it, and they just cut the game short immediately all of a sudden. If you still want to buy the game and try to enjoy it, you would have to buy the season pass in order to get at least some more content out of the game, but by buying the season pass, you're going to be limiting the amount of players you can play with, and finding a game is going to be much harder, especially down the road. Number 2, Modern Warfare 2. Luke, why isn't this number 1 on the list? This is the best Call of Duty. Alright, Luke! Okay. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is to many fans the best game in the franchise, and still to this day. No other Call of Duty has ever gotten close to recapturing what this game was all about. The game is just one of the best aged multiplayer titles that we have seen, and it plays like you remember it from well back in the day. All the maps are still fun to play. It actually feels like there are less hackers than in Call of Duty World War II, and with the addition of IW4X, it also helps keep the community alive and add new content to the game. If you don't know what IW4X, it's a fan-made modification game launcher for Modern Warfare 2 that allows players to host their own servers, and it adds a server browser to Call of Duty, and there's a ton of new game modes, new maps, new weapons. You can play Modern Warfare 2 on Nuketown. So just think about that for quickscoping, it's pretty cool. They even managed to restore some of the maps like Oil Rig that was supposed to be in the original game, but got cut out somewhere during the latest stages of development, which is really cool to get to play on. We did a full video on all of the deleted maps you can also check out that were supposed to be in Modern Warfare 2. Even then, the regular vanilla Modern Warfare 2 without the IW4X mod is really fun to play. It's just as active as you remember, and there's not a lot of hackers. You might get noob-tubed a lot, but there's not as many hackers, especially on the PC, which is really nice. So would we recommend you buying the game in 2018 or not? We think it's pretty clear, yeah, you actually should buy this game. This game still has a good community going, where there are quite a few players that still remember and play this game for the good old days of 2009, 2010. For this game, it was a little harder to compare the numbers right after release because we couldn't find numbers from that far back, and we couldn't find console numbers, and the PC gaming community back then was way smaller than it is today, which makes the numbers basically pointless. But one number we think is a lot is that this game still averages 1,100 players a day, and for an almost 10-year-old game, it's still a great number to have. The price isn't too bad either, with a key to the game on a popular key site costing around $7 to $8. Modern Warfare 2 is still super worth it, and if you plan on buying the game soon, or even if you already own it, we highly recommend checking out the game itself or IW4X. It's a great mod. We'll put a guide on how to install the mod in the description down below. It's super easy to do, and you can't get a VAC ban on Steam for having it. And number 1, because Luke said so, Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Choosing the number 1 spot was a close decision between Black Ops 3 and Modern Warfare 2. We ended up choosing Black Ops 3 because it is in fact the second most active Call of Duty after World War II by just looking at the plain numbers of online players. Black Ops 3 often peaks at around 400 players and still has an average of 2,000 players playing every day. As aforementioned, that is half the numbers that World War II pulls right now, which is fairly impressive. The game is also well supported by the developers and gets small updates and tweaks here and there, and even got a 6th DLC pack in June 2018 on the PS4 only, I think. And there's still DLC that's kind of being actively made. There was the Zombie Chronicles from last year, and the PS4 users got a special DLC pack if they pre-ordered the game. Now, you might have heard online that Black Ops 3 is supposed to be not that fun of a Call of Duty, but that might be caused by the association with the general hate that Call of Duties were getting during that time of their releases for having some sort of advanced movement. We had Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, then Infinite Warfare all come out back to back to back with the advanced movement that people didn't want, especially when people were begging for boots on the ground to come back. And had Black Ops 3 been released outside of the scope of these advanced movement titles, the game probably would have had a lot less negative reputation. Honestly, the map design is pretty great, and it works super well if you get used to the advanced movement. It took the well-received Pick 10 customization from Black Ops 2 and added 10 playable specialists with different abilities to make the gameplay more varied. There are 15 maps in the base game, with Redwood, Snow, and Fringe Nightfall just added a few months ago, which are variations on existing maps already. If you want to buy a cheaper Call of Duty right now and not wait for Black Ops 4, we would highly recommend you pick up Black Ops 3 and possibly even buy the Zombie Chronicles because it's really fun to play. It's a 2-year-old game with a consistent player base that has a lot of great content. Black Ops 3 is fully available on Xbox One and PlayStation 4, where especially the PS4 community is still active. And if you, for some reason, want to pick up the Xbox 360 PS3 version of this game, we don't know if anyone's still playing that game. If you're debating between Black Ops 3 or Modern Warfare 2, you should ask yourself the question, do you want boots on the ground or not? Because it pretty much comes down to that. For finding this list, we use Steam charts to track how many people are playing the game on Steam. Obviously, these numbers aren't exactly accurate when you're looking over at the communities on the consoles. However, the percentages are pretty close for most of the Call of Duty games, unless we're looking at the Modern Warfare games that haven't been backwards compatible on the Xbox. We also know that not only the multiplayer should be an indicator on whether you buy a game or not, but the purpose of this video, we almost exclusively looked at the multiplayer aspects of Call of Duty. Therefore, what is your opinion on the past Call of Duty games, and which one do you think you should buy in 2018? Do zombies play a huge role into what you think on the games? Let us know in the comments down below, and make sure you check out our Patreon under rocketsloth.net and help support this channel so we can put out even more time and effort into our content that we like creating. Or you could buy a Rocket Sloth t-shirt, that'd be cool too. GG, no re. Alright, that's all the time we have for today. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you all next time with a brand new video.